So I even can think to different times when I'm like on a date with someone or like back before I like really healed this in a meaningful way. I would like be sitting there with someone that I was interested in and I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, but I feel like I can't leave this situation because I don't want to lose this person's attention. And what if when I lose their attention, it doesn't come back to me? Like I lose it forever. This was real. This was like a real fear that I had when I was in my early 20s because this comes from this lack of attention from the opposite sex caretaker, right? Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack here, and today I want to get into the masculine and feminine wound, as Carl Jung put it, the anima and the animus, and how it has been integrated or not integrated. And this all can really help us understand like why women relate to men in the way that they do, why men relate to women in the way that they do. And collectively, it's really interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot this week because a couple of different scenarios have come up in my world. And overarchingly, the kind of we're mad at you as is directed to the opposite sex is quite collective, but why we're mad at you is so individual. So it's actually really interesting. Like it's such an individual thing. And upon having a conversation with somebody that is kind of directing their frustration and resentment towards the opposite sex, I can really quickly understand like the root cause of this immediately, right? Even in the sense that they haven't ever thought about it, it's unconscious still for them. And so I had that experience happen this week, and I think it kind of highlights a really great opportunity for us men and women to understand a little bit deeper what's going on with how women are thinking about men, and then we can also talk about the feminine wound, right? The mother wound. And so just want to get into it because it's so interesting. So I don't know, some of y'all don't. I'm growing my coaching business, I'm working on the podcast, I'm growing all of this, and in the meantime I also do some advertising brand strategy work. So I've been doing this for a long time, like over 12, 15 years. And I was in fashion and then I got into graphic design and then that led me to strategy within advertising. And so sometimes I'm not that passionate about it, but and mostly it's because it's, we're selling stuff. And I think that half the things that we're selling are meaningless. But I will say I am finding myself more and more grateful for it because that's where I've really developed all my research chops, So it's like it's super helpful in that. That's where I do a lot of my data research, target in consumer research, and then I'll create my observations and insights, and I'll weave together different bits of information. And that's kind of something I'm great at, and I love to do. So I'm actually really grateful for it. But in the midst of this marketing, advertising stuff that I get to do, I get to engage in a lot of conversation with women and women that are kind of mainstream in their views and their ideas and are not, doing the work that I'm doing or in the work that I'm doing that myself and my close community of people are doing. So it's great. And sometimes I get triggered and frustrated, but other times you know, really understand that it's such an important way for me to like be on the pulse and try to understand and unwrap what's really going on. And I actually had someone say something really beautiful recently to me that helped me learn how to even better hear someone's perspective and really understand that it's coming from their wound, right? And this friend of mine was like, it's like, if imagine if you go see a doctor, right? And you tell him, oh, my elbow hurts or like my stomach hurts and I have this pain here. And the doctor's like, oh God, no way. Like, why aren't you perfectly healthy? I don't want to hear about your pain. I don't want to hear about that. Put that away. I hate that. And it's like, no, the doctor is like, okay, well, let's kind of try to find the root cause of this, right? And so when we're in conversation and someone says an opposing viewpoint or something that's a little bit triggering to your life view, um, or it's something mean and resentful or whatever, it's like, oh, that's their pain talking. That's them literally highlighting for you like, oh, this is where my wound is. And that happened to me this week when we were talking about men. The conversation came up in that there was some Gen Z uh, report that came out about just some research, and there were some very superficial data points on this report. Something about like more men have dogs than women, or men find it more meaningful to care for their pets than women do. Some stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, well, this is a surface level statistic, but it's sitting on top of the deeper statistics around men and the societal moment we're in. And then I brought up the Lost Boys report that just came out of the UK. Uh, Steve from Diary of a CEO did that podcast this past week with Scott Galloway and Logan Ury. And I listened to that, and it was really important information, stuff that, those of us that have been focused on men and men's work and women's work, we've been talking about this stuff for 10 years, how men have are checking out of society. And this other woman that I was in a conversation with, she was basically talking about how we shouldn't care about that. It doesn't matter. It's not, men need to get it together and all of the typical stuff that you would imagine, right? So I'm like kind of going back to this conversation around just like, why are we putting the onus on women again? Why are men so lonely? It's because they can't find ways to connect with one another, and like it's your deal. Like you worry about it. It's not my problem, right? It's this kind of like you're the problem, not me. Like you need to figure it out. I don't want anything to do with it. And it became super interesting because I was like, wow, okay, well, doesn't want, she just doesn't want to have any sort of compassion for men and what men are going through. Like, what is that? Why is that? Why is that happening? And it became very, very clear to me that her dad left when she was a little girl, right? Like her dad left when she was a little girl. So her wound is really about you left, you weren't there, right? I never had you, so you're on your own, right? Like I never had you, I was on my own, you left me on my own, so like you're on your own. And so that mindset, it just makes sense, right? It's a belief system. It's not she didn't just make up the idea that I am never going to have compassion towards men, right? It comes from this inner wound. It comes from this inner belief system. And it's all about like the mirror of it, right? So I don't care about you because you didn't care about me, right? As a little child, that was the takeaway. That was the belief that was created around the scenario that he left. And it had me really reflecting on my own story and why I care so much and why I'm here and why I have this big kind of mission around helping men and women heal and just finding harmony again. And it was just really important to understand. And so for me and my story, like my dad was physically present, but there was no attention, right? I had no attention directed towards me. It was the opposite. It was a lot of harsh criticism and a lot of just like negative kind of in really, really harsh criticism. And so I was like writing here, um, the thing that we're just like collectively missing when we're missing something is attention, right? Little girls, when they're missing attention from their dad, there's some coping mechanisms, right? So for her, for example, he was gone. So she was just like, I'm not even gonna try. I literally am just going to write you off. Whereas in my story, he was present. So I was just constantly trying to please and constantly trying to prove and constantly just like, can I do this well? Can I do this well? Can I do this well? Effectively, like performing at all times. It completely took me out of me ever being myself back then because I never got to be myself, right? The whole thing, what we're looking for from our opposite sex parent is you are so okay as you are. Like, I love you as you are. You don't have to perform anything. You are great as you are. Like, I'm here with you. All the attention, all the unconditional love, just like that's where our self-esteem gets built, right? And I think that for me, the love was distant. It was always just, okay, if I do this and that, if I can be really sweet and nice, and if I can do all the right things, then maybe he'll love me, right? And that obviously didn't work because the love wasn't about getting his love. Like he wasn't able to offer me what I needed. So then later on, I had to then go and heal that myself. So if dad had wired healthy, like that attention through healthy attachment, then I wouldn't have had to create the strategy around like, well, how do I know if I'm wanted? Maybe when I do this, or maybe when I do that, or maybe when I do that. And so the whole thing is attention. So I even can think to different times when I'm like on a date with someone, or like back before I like really healed this in a meaningful way. I would like be sitting there with someone that I was interested in, and I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, but I feel like I can't leave this situation because I don't want to lose this person's attention. And what if when I lose their attention, like it doesn't come back to me? Like I lose it forever. This was real. This was like a real fear that I had when I was in my early 20s because this comes from this lack of attachment or this lack of attention from the opposite sex caretaker, right? And so it's really interesting. Whereas if you think about the woman that I was just talking about, it's like I never had your attention. I never even had it. So there's this like combative, kind of just like resentful and bitter attitude. So it's so interesting. We all have our own little stories about that. And so my story, of course, is that I like over concerned myself with men and their how they were and how they weren't. And there was just this like emotional um like obsession with like trying to maintain that attention, right? Because deep down, like, well, I was like a 4-year-old little girl that just wanted love. That's the whole thing. That's what we're doing here. And so my relationship with my the masculine archetype within me was of let me please you. Whereas the woman I was just talking about, her relationship with the masculine archetype is just like you're completely dead to me. Like you're not even present in my space. And so with that, they're both very unhealthy. They're both very unhealthy, but they're just unhealthy in different ways. And so I think that upon having my coach that really like helped me rewrite these stories and really helped me heal, and upon doing all of the healing in the last 8 years, like I have really been able to work through this, right? And so that's what the goal of all of this stuff is. And so it was just so meaningful because what I've been able to do is that I've been able to then understand in great detail what it's like for a man with his feminine archetype, right? What it's like for a man that effectively a gentleman messaged me this week and was like, um, booked a call and was like, I have daddy issues, but with my mom. So yeah, it's mommy issues. And so I just finished up with a client recently, and he sent me this lovely message, and he said, it's been an honor to be witnessed by you and be coached by you through this entire process. Your warmth and acceptance of me has been very great to feel, as it has never happened to me before. Right? That's the thing that holds us back from true compassion and understanding and powerful connection with the opposite sex, right? So, like, what I went through created a lot of really unhealthy programs for me with men. But I think for me, my unhealthy programs were like on one side of the spectrum, and that my journey has been to coming into my own power, and that's been so amazing for me, and learning how to no, I can excuse myself to go to the restroom, and if like if it's not a match, it's not a match, right? It's like these interesting little things that feel urgent because when we're little girls, we're little 4-year-olds, it was urgent, right? Because little kids, we're little bundles of ego. So as a little 4-year-old, if I went to the bathroom and I came back and my dad it seemed to me like he was mad or angry, then I could, as a 4-year old, create the connection that, oh, whenever I take care of myself, dad is angry. So like I have to forego my personal needs, my boundaries, who I am, to try to please dad. Never works in the end, right? But as a 4-year old, I'm trying and I'm trying and I'm trying. And I can't tell you how many times I see men that have the exact same um, programs in their mind and in their spirit because of their mom and because of the emotional unavailability of mom and the lack of attention from mom. And what's really interesting is sometimes this gets really confused with love. And mom wounds are a little more difficult than dad wounds sometimes because they are wrapped in love a lot of the time. And I was actually having a great conversation with a girlfriend. We see so much of this in like Jewish men and in Jewish families. And it's almost like something's happening where mom is kind of overbearing and intense, but she's like cooking a lot and it's like, I love you, kisses all the time, like smother, smother, I love you. But she's so overbearing and domineering. She actually hasn't ever once in her life seen her son as an individual, like human with his own essence of life. And she's never ever learned or known how to accept him and embrace him as he is. She's always put her ideas onto him, right? Because that's what she experienced in the whole line down the generational track all the way back, right? So it's like it seems like love and there might be love there. Of course, every parent loves their child, but there is no attention. There is no true attention that is real contact where a person actually feels seen. And sometimes people haven't been seen ever a day in their life. And the moment that they are seen and felt, tears just rush down their face because it's the first time they've experienced that. All that they had when they were children was like, go do this, do this, do this. You're to this. You need that. Do this. We're doing that. Move there. Never true connection, never true contact, never true warmth. And so that's something that we see with a lot of men, right? And just like I just explained the difference between my experience and the woman that I was just talking to, I see the same kind of duality in men, the same kind of range where it's, I want to please, a lot of neediness, a lot of over niceness, right? It's like the nice guy archetype. Or it's just like, I don't care. I don't care about women. They don't matter. But deep down, of course, they do, right? Deep down, they do. And so what ends up happening is someone like the woman I was talking about, whose wound is like, I never had you, so F you, pretty much. There's so many layers of beliefs that get created from that, which is like men can never do this or men should just never get support. And then, of course, she'll manifest somebody into her life that will never be able to help her, right? Will effectively play out all of the beliefs that she has in her mind. He will play those out for her. And so she will just be like, she will just be proven right. Um, over and over and over and over again, right? So like for example, like maybe she'll attract someone that is really terrible with money and like a starving musician that will never make money, right? Ever. Never want to even, right? Not that he isn't but wants to, but like doesn't even want to. And then she'll have this idea in her mind that like, yeah, she has to do everything. She can never rely on a man, right? Whereas, someone with the old belief systems that I had, which I can think of many women off the top of my head, especially from within my culture, that have these kinds of programs running. Yeah, they marry someone that doesn't really respect them or see them, that actually sees this ideal image of who they want, right? For example, like what it was like with someone that I dated in my early 20s, like, oh, Jewish, Russian, blonde, beautiful, smart, great. But like the resume, but not the soul essence, right? And how could a man see the soul essence of a woman who's never been given the attention that she needed to develop that in herself? And so she doesn't even know her soul essence. And so that's when people get depressed, and that's when people are not living their true selves, and they're constantly in this um dissatisfaction of life, right? This disease, like this kind of just not in ease, right? And so um that will happen, and then they'll live this like separate but together life, which is so, it's heartbreaking for the soul, right? It's heartbreaking for the soul. And for me, like I had my kind of hand of God moment when I was in something like that. And this was about 9 years ago. And I remember getting a text message that was like, "Can you go check the mail?" And I, I remember, you guys, I was laying in bed and I was like, I physically cannot get up to go check the mail. It felt like Mount Everest. And that's when you know you're just, your soul is pleading for you, like you're dying. And that's when I changed everything. I just took a radical action. I left and I began my journey, and everything changed for me. Yeah, it was about 9.5 or so years ago. That's when the beginning of like old me versus new me kind of began, and it was just so beautiful. And then my personal journey around my desire to please back then had me really interested in how men think, what men do, what men want, and all these things. And so all of that stuff, and that was always very painful for me too, because I was never really, the classic story that we all nice guys and nice girls tell. It's like, oh, you know um all I meet are unavailable people. I always meet unavailable opposite sex person. Like I never meet someone that I really like, that like is, that wants me. And the reality is it's a mirror. It's a mirror. Just like we don't want it's we don't want ourselves. And God in that moment is really bringing us back to ourselves, because what's really happening there is not that this person isn't interested. Actually, the attraction happened because they're probably could be interested in you, and you could be interested in them, and it could be a budding relationship. But there's no space for love there, because all that exists there is attachment and wounding and pleasing and all of that stuff. There's actually, it's almost like there's no space for love to even grow. You imagine almost like the plate is full of all this other stuff. And so God is like, come back to yourself. This pain is something that you get to heal. And that's what and we get to do that with a coach, with an opposite sex coach. And I really believe that to be true. So that's what I went through in my journey. So first it was about really healing that with the masculine, helping like effectively finding like a father like figure to help me rewrite my story, and then getting into healing my feminine, and doing all these women's groups and all of these different things that I've done, and then continuing my coaching on my learning and all of my workshops and all of the trainings that I've done to be certified in coaching men and all of that. So it's just so important. So if we just think about this, I'm going to bring this back down, like nice guys, the cool girl. So I call her the cool girl because even though she's also a nice girl, for some reason within women it plays off a little bit more like, oh, like I don't want him to know that I'm actually ruminating about this confusing relationship, and I'm obsessed with keeping his attention, but I don't want him to know that because I have this idea that that's unattractive, so I'm just going to play it cool. And that never works. And so I have another video on that too, the cool girl and the nice guy. But I just think this is really important because I feel like we're hitting like a tipping point, and I'm so fucking grateful about that. Like things can change, the relationships between men and women can change. And it can change especially if we can understand that collectively what doesn't work is this animosity towards the opposite sex. Obviously, that doesn't work. I'm anti that. And that's what we've been doing. We've been going further and further and further apart. And if men lose, women lose. If women lose, men lose. Like there's no, right? Like zero sum, like it has to be we both win together or we both lose together. That's it. And so I want us both to win together. And what does that look like? How can we find compassion and how can we understand what we need? And, you know, a great example of this is kind of like, okay, in the United States, in the 20th century, for most of the 20th century, we set up the system where they were the primary breadwinners and they made money. And we also made men get caught up in that and that being their only sense of purpose, right? Like, if I bring back the money, that's good. Then I did my job, right? And then the moment, of course, if that is what men are wrapped up in, that's their sense of purpose, the moment that a woman starts making money, obviously that evaporates. That's heartbreaking. We don't want that. I don't want that. I want men to feel, you know, deeply, deeply fulfilled in their purpose. I want women to feel deeply, deeply fulfilled in their purpose. What are those purposes, right? God made man in the image of both feminine and masculine. And we have a purpose that is distinct from the other. And by fulfilling our individual purpose as man or woman, we then can come together and we can both win. What is that? I think that's really interesting. There are a lot of great conversations about this. There are a lot of great novels written about this, right? I'm currently reading John Eldridge's wife's book, Captivating. So, you know, we know men want purpose and meaning and to be useful and to be appreciated and acknowledged for their efforts. And they want to um, uh, kind of take who they are and express that in the world through their gifts, right? Um, what is the three things that John Eldredge says? Like an adventure, a mission, and a beauty to fight for, right? It's so beautiful. Women, we have we have three things that we really want too. And I'm kind of reading about this and I'm thinking about what is it the things that women really want. And it's, you know, I think to be wanted, right? To be chosen. I think that's a really big one. And I think love. We just want to be in relationship and we want to be loved. We want to be loved and we want attention, right? The same way little girls want attention from their dad is the same way women want attention from their male love, you know? And I think like when we're not in touch with these things and when we're not thinking about these things, it's our wound talking. So, you know, this idea of like if we don't both win, then we both lose. And people that are not thinking that way are speaking from their wound. They're speaking from their pain. They're speaking from the he left and, you know, no one really ever wanted me, so I don't really want him. Or he hurt me, or all of these things, right? And so we need to kind of just remember that and kind of going back to what I said earlier, it's like the person that comes into the doctor's office and says, I have a pain, and the doctor, you know, his job is not to tell him the person he's wrong, right? Is his job is to find the root cause and let that be okay and let that be not an attack on you, right? It's like it's really easy for me to hear like anti-male sentiment from women and just be like, like you're taking us back, you know, like don't you know, like if we don't both win, then like we both lose. And it's like, you know what? That's not the right way to go about it, right? It's like that person speaking from their pain, and can I be compassionate with that in the same way that I'm compassionate with other pain and um, mother wound pain, which is what I focus on in my coaching practice and stuff. So, you know, tell me what your relationship is like with the opposite sex, and I will tell you what your relationship was like with your opposite sex parent. I will tell you. It's very clear and it's connected. And it is one of the ways that we solve this problem of men and women drifting further and further apart when really my dream is for men and women to come closer and closer together. And so I will leave this one at that. I hope you've enjoyed this, and until the next one. Hello, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy to be here bringing my wisdom, my truths, all the research I do into pop culture and evolutionary psych and beyond to bring men and women the information that we all need to know to find that ultimate harmony with each other. This is the mission. This is why I'm here. This is what I believe in. So if you found value in what I'm doing here, please help me grow the podcast. And you can do one of two things. Either share the episode with a friend or leave me a review on Spotify or Apple. This will help me so much. Until next time.